All right, peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Now, in today's video, I just want to watch a video made by Vivek Ramaswamy. And for those of you who don't know, he's a politician in America running for the Conservative Party. I think at this time he's pulled out of the race and he's kind of conceded to Donald Trump. He's supporting Donald Trump, but I think he hopes to be president one day in America behind with the Conservative Party supporting him. And one of the biggest obstacles that he's had to face is that he's a Hindu. He's not backing down from his Hindu faith. And of course, America, especially those who vote conservative, are in the majority those who call themselves Christians. And naturally, Christians are very suspicious of Hinduism, which is kind of silly because they haven't studied, because Hinduism is very, very similar to Christianity. This whole avatar, son of God, multiple persons, this human child that's the light of the world. It's all in Hinduism, but nonetheless, Christians, they do feel suspicious of him. And um, I know politics is quite fake. I understand. I'm not saying I would ever vote for this guy. I don't vote. I don't believe in politics. I only believe in my Lord. But I do respect Vivek Ramaswamy's honesty. Now, it would be a lot more expedient for his political career for him to call himself a Christian. If he says, "Hey guys, I went to a church one time and I experienced the love and joy of Jesus Christ, and I converted. I'm a Christian now. I believe in our Lord Jesus Christ." Well, I guess he kind of does. He says that Jesus is a son of God, but not the son of God, because Christians say the son of God, and this is in line with the Hindu doctrine of Krishna having multiple, the Almighty having multiple avatars throughout history, including Krishna and Christ. And I at least admire his honesty because he's staying firm to his Hindu roots. He believes in Hinduism and Dharma and not necessarily the tenets of Christianity. He's not changing his opinions just to match the political audience that would be hearing him. But, anyways, to kind of put that background a little bit aside, uh, Vivek, he tries to convince his audience that they have enough common values between Hinduism and Christianity, and he gives a very respectable response that there's enough common values between Hinduism and Christianity where he can lead this majority Christian nation, or at least majority Christian claiming nation. Because he's asked, why? Why should we trust a Hindu president when we're a Christian people? And I want to comment on this because he in his response, he brings up a common point that many people say. They'll say, like, oh, what does it matter what we believe? So long as we're good people, good moral people, it shouldn't matter if they believe in one God or three gods or a trinity or samsara, this eternal cycle of hell, death and rebirth, or eternal hell, like in the Quranic biblical model. What what's the matter? It doesn't matter. That's kind of the angle that Vivek is playing to win over the Christians. And you hear this from people a lot. Oh, I don't care if you believe in one God or three gods or a trinity or a samsara or reincarnation or hell. As long as you're a good person, I'm okay. What people say this from the secular side so many times. Whatever makes you a good person, I'm happy. And obviously, we should be kind to people of other faiths, show them respect and care, and be equitable and just. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but uh, I want to show why these things actually matter. If you believe in one God or three gods or Trinity or hell, that they're more important than the secularists are giving them credit for, these higher order matters. Because sometimes it can leave our mind the importance of these things. Because regarding temporal matters on this earth, we see the effects of moral decay very quickly. So we all can see immediately the effects of stealing from somebody. Okay, we shouldn't have stealing allowed in our society. We shouldn't have murder allowed in our society. We shouldn't have sodomy allowed in our society. We can all see the effects of this immediately. Whereas if a society says that God has a son, God forbid, or God is a trinity, God forbid, or that there's reincarnation as opposed to resurrection, these blasphemies and heresies, the effects of which might not be immediately available to see in society, but believe me, they will work themselves out. So we'll watch this video of Vivek Ramaswamy, and I'll kind of give a little bit of a commentary.
We don't share the same faith. I'm a Christian, you're a Hindu, and you've centered your campaign on truth.
Yes.
So question a lot of the caucus goers have is, what truth? Where do you find it? Where do you discover it? And then how do you discern it and how do you apply it?
I think it's
All right, so I'm Christian, you're Hindu. How can we go about this? Who has the truth? How can we trust you to lead our country?
It's a question I'm grateful for, Bob, actually, because we have gone to probably hundreds of events across the state, and we get a lot of questions on policy, and it does feel like a bit of an elephant in the room. And so I'm grateful for the chance to talk about faith.
And Vivek Ramaswamy, he is an orator like I've never seen. He's such a good speaker. This guy has definitely done a lot of training. He can handle himself in the hot seat when he's getting grilled by these douchebag conservative politicians, and they're just, you can even see the low-key, subtle racist tones in these debates, and he handles himself quite well.
Actually, my faith is what gives me my freedom. In many ways, my faith is what led me to this presidential campaign, actually. I'll tell you about why. But let me just tell you about my faith. I haven't talked about this on the campaign trail yet. I'll tell you my faith. I'm Hindu. I believe there's one true God.
Hey, so this is what I talked about before, a slight aside. Hindus say they believe in one God, okay, just like Christians.
I believe God put each of us here for a purpose. My faith teaches me that we have a duty, a moral duty, to realize that purpose, that we're God's instruments. He works through us in different ways, but we are still equal because God resides in each of us. That's the core of my faith. I grew up in a pretty traditional household. You'd certainly call, I think, a traditional household. My parents taught me family is the foundation. Respect your parents. Marriage is sacred. Abstinence before marriage is the way to go. Adultery is wrong. Marriage is between a man and a woman. Divorce is not just some preference you opt for. That when you get married, get married before God, and you make an oath to God and you make an oath to your family, that the good things in life involve a sacrifice, that there's more to life than the aimless passage of time. We're here for a purpose, and we pursue that purpose. Now, is that a foreign set of values? Is that a strange set of values? I think it is if you look at parts of America today. I mean, turn on the TV. Go to the movie theater. Go to your local HR session.
And quickly, I want to say, excuse me, obviously we can get in line with those values. I believe there is one God. I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. I believe that marriage is sacred. I believe that it's an oath before the Lord. I believe in all these things. These are good things, but we'll let him speak a little bit more, then I'll comment on it.
In your corporate DEI training.
We fired that department.
Look, thank you. It's a great service you did. Right? I mean, you could go to universities, go to what they're teaching your kids in public schools. That would feel like foreign values, but I don't think they're foreign values to most Americans in this country. I don't think they're foreign values to those of us who are in this room today. And that's what I would say is that, so I learned this. I went to Christian high school, St. X in Cincinnati. What do we learn? We read the Ten Commandments. We read the Bible, Scriptures class. God is real. There's one true God. Don't take his name in vain. Honor the Sabbath. Respect your parents. Don't lie. Don't steal.
Right? We can get
Don't
in
bear
line
false
with that.
witness on your neighbor. Don't covet. Don't commit adultery. What I learned during that time, and I was a young person at that time, is that these values, they're familiar to me. They don't belong to Hindus. But these values, they don't belong to Christians either. They belong to God, actually. And I think they are the values that undergird our country. And so can I be a president who promotes Christianity across this country? I can't, for a number of reasons. I'm not Christian. I don't think that's actually what we should want the U.S. president exactly doing either. That's a job for pastors and others who need to carry that out. But will I stand for those fair values, for those shared values? Will I promote them in the example that we set, revive them in the next generation of Americans? You're darn right I will, because that's my duty. And I think God put us here for a purpose. And one aspect of my faith that I'll just comment on, Bob, is one of our teachings is that we don't choose who God chooses to work through. That's not our choice. That belongs to God. And again, when at St. X High School, when we read the book of Isaiah.
So yeah, basically what Vivek is getting to is that it doesn't really matter. Although my theology is different to yours, I believe in the Christians don't understand this because they don't study, but I believe in reincarnation. You believe in resurrection. I believe that Jesus is a avatar or a son of God. You believe that he is the son of God. And it doesn't really matter because I stand up for enough common values that are going to be good for the country: family, traditional family, respect between men and women, respect to parents, honoring God. And it sounds good, and I respect this response. It's a very gentlemanly response he gave, but here's the issue with it. He's essentially going along the lines of it it doesn't matter so long as it, he's using religions as a means of just bringing out morality in people, which obviously that's one of its purposes, but not its main purpose. It goes back in that whole secular thing of what does it matter what people believe, so long as they're good, moral people. It shouldn't matter if they believe in one God or three or Trinity or reincarnation or eternal hellfire. It doesn't matter. For me, it does matter. So let's say, as an example, we had a Quranistan. We had some nation, we believe in the Quran alone, and if we even believe in the concept of voting, which I don't, but let's just say it happened, and we had some guy like Vivek pop up, and he's a Hindu, and he seems conservative enough and respectable enough in a lot of ways. Why would I not vote for him just because he doesn't accept the Quran as the final word of God? And I guess we can come from that Christian perspective as a Christian. Why do I think the Christians, they shouldn't vote for this guy because he doesn't accept their doctrine? Why are these doctrinal matters so important? So the issue with this whole thing of, oh, it doesn't matter what you believe so long as you're a good person, is that you're essentially assuming that there is no true answer to these higher order questions. Listen, if God is truly one God, let's say as an example, and not a trinity, then saying he is multiple or saying he's a trinity is false. By saying he is multiple, you are blaspheming him if he is de facto one and only one. If there is a true answer to these questions, then it matters greatly what a nation believes and what the leader of a nation believes regarding these matters. It's not, again, you're reducing religion down into this thing of, oh, it's just, it's a useful lie. Religion is just a useful fiction that we tell people to make them good. It doesn't matter what they believe: reincarnation, resurrection, one God, a million gods. It doesn't matter so long as it makes them good people. It's a useful, noble lie that people are told. Really, it comes down to none of this God and hereafter stuff is really true in the end. Whatever delusion you need to believe about this stuff is okay with me as long as it makes them a good person. It's actually an insult to these religions that hold these higher order doctrines about God and the hereafter and the nature of man, the nature of creation in such high esteem. It's quite a disrespect. These people, they try to make it seem like they're respecting all religions. Hey, it doesn't matter as long as you're a good person, I respect. But no, you're actually diminishing the values that are most important in those religions. The issue with this thinking as well is that you're also assuming your own definition of good without justifying it. Oh, it doesn't matter as long as people are good. You're assuming as a given your definition of good. Remember, these different religions, they have different understandings of good and bad. And here's the key point: these understandings of what is right and what is wrong, whether you get this point or not, are derived from their broader theologies and, dare I say, metaphysical presuppositions. So we get our understanding of right and wrong from these our theology and assumptions about these higher order questions. Who is God? What is the world? What is mankind? Where we're going? We get our concept of good and bad from that. There is no, oh, as long as you're just a good person. And no, being a good person is defined by those very higher order questions being answered in a certain way. And these different religions, they have different understandings of what is right and wrong. And I'll give you a concrete example. So, I'm sorry about the sniffles that you can maybe hear me sniffling a bit of it, but what I was saying is Jainists, they believe eating meat is bad. And the reason they believe it, this comes out of their broader theology. Eating meat is bad and evil because According to them, all living beings have a divine spirit in them and thus are divine. They all have this peace of God within them, and to slaughter an animal for culinary purposes is wrong. We are blaspheming and defying that Holy Spirit which they have. Muslims, people who believe in the Quran, we only believe that God is divine, and thus it is not a crime or sacrilege to kill and eat an animal because God has permitted it. God has given us the right to do that. These are two very different understandings of right and wrong, and they are derived from our different theologies and worldviews, and both of these can't be right. Either eating meat is sacrilege or eating meat is okay. Either a piece of God, the divine, is in everything, therefore we shouldn't kill anything ever in any scenario, or only God is divine, and God has given man dominion over the earth, and he has given us right to slaughter cattle in a humane way and to eat them and enjoy their flesh and the nourishment that comes from it. The different theologies give us our understanding of right and wrong. There is no people if people are just good. Goodness is defined by those broader principles. What you have to understand is that our conception of right and wrong and sin and non-sin comes from our broader theological and metaphysical presuppositions about God, the world, and the hereafter. And that's why we can't just discard these willy-nilly if somebody is a quote-unquote good person. These spiritual principles of either God is one, or God is a trinity, or the hereafter is you're going to be reincarnated after your karma is exhausted, or I don't know, you're going to be resurrected and either go to paradise or hell. These spiritual principles give meaning and power to those earthly laws, which are so beneficial for society. So these laws, which we all love, don't lie, don't murder, don't cheat, don't steal, be sexually faithful, all these things, which are common amongst the religions of the world, those spiritual principles behind them give the power and meaning to those earthly laws in the first place, which you, the secularist, want to see in society. You want to say, hey, I want to see people as good, and it doesn't matter what they believe. Those principles give meaning to those laws in the first place. And Vivek and these people who are coming at it from a more secular perspective, they're missing the point. These laws, although they produce don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, the Quranic commandments, they do produce earthly peace, and that's a great thing. That is one of their purposes: peace and happiness and camaraderie and equity, easiness for mankind. No doubt about that. But them producing earthly peace is not their primary purpose. It's part of it, but it's not primarily their purpose. They are not just expedient statues that are convenient in the life of this world. Their primary purpose is to prepare us to be in a good place in the hereafter. That is the main reason of these laws. That is the main concern. Preparing us to see God in the hereafter in a good state, not necessarily order in the world, although it does cause that. So the doctrines and beliefs, one God, three God, reincarnation, karma, resurrection, these things matter greatly. The doctrines and beliefs are what give birth to these commandments and teachings that maintain societal order. They come out of the theology. By separating the doctrinal aspect and only focusing on the earthly outcomes, it doesn't matter as long as people aren't homosexuals and they aren't cheating on their wives and we have a general order in society. If you separate the doctrinal aspects and only focus on the earthly outcomes, you are essentially separating the spirit from the actions. You're creating an oven with no heat, a wire with no electricity, a lamp with no fire. Now, these things, they can seem unimportant to us on a surface level because when we teach false things about these higher order questions, like, oh, God is not one God, he's actually a trinity, he's three in one, these false things, if we teach errors about God in the hereafter, the effects in our lives are not immediate right away. So, like stealing, killing, it's not so readily apparent. If a civilization allows thievery, let's say, I don't know, Canada, I live in Canada, Canada says, all right, we're going to allow thieves and not prosecute them anymore, we're going to see the effects of that in our civilization immediately as the societal order decays. However, if a civilization says there's 10 gods, let's say that Canada just started promoting that idea, the effects of that sin, and it is sin, and sacrilege will not necessarily be seen immediately. Everything will look like it's going on orderly, well, and smart and good, but you won't see the effects of that degeneracy immediately of believing there's 10 gods, like you would see if Trudeau allowed murder to happen in society. However, despite not seeing those effects immediately when you sacrilege and have an error in your higher order principles, uh, just as in the case of an odorless poisonous gas, although the effects are not immediate, believe me, they are nevertheless very real and potent. When you have a wrong conception of, and I shy away from the word, but I'm going to use it, the quote unquote metaphysics of the matter, you are polluting the very roots and foundations of your ethical system in the first place. And in due time, you will see the horrific effects of that on your society at large. So, when your first order principles are screwed up, you have a wrong conception of God, your purpose in the hereafter, believe me, the degeneracy will follow, the societal decay will follow when the behavior of people begins to corrupt, because their first principles from which their behavior and ethics derive is already corrupt. So, although the effects are delayed when we mess up our higher order principles, what we believe about the divine, they are far more brutal and damaging to society when first principles about higher order concepts are corrupt. So that's why we should, I don't believe in voting, I don't believe in politics, but just I'm using this as an example to tease out a important lesson for us that these things are very important. In fact, although I'm not saying it's not important, I emphasize this so much on my channel. Live a good life, live a good life, live a righteous life. The Quran emphasizes it so much. I would say more important than that is our conception of God in the hereafter, even though it doesn't affect us so much right now in the immediate sense that we can see. That is even more important because these behaving good and living a righteous life, that's concerning earthly matters, earthly peace, earthly pleasures, earthly equity and just behavior. But our understanding of God, is he one, is he three, is he this, is he that, the hereafter, this is concerning heavenly matters. Corrupting your man in the earth is not as bad as urging falsehoods and corruptions against the heavens and the heavenly matters. So that's my point. This is why it matters and why I don't believe in the secular motto, so long as you're a good person, doesn't matter what you believe. Religion is not a useful fiction. There are right answers to these questions, and our ethics, you're even just assuming what a good person is, but which usually comes from Judeo-Christian Islamic values, but our conception of what a good person is comes from that broader worldview, and it's different across the world depending on the faith that people have. Faith creates ethics. Theologies create ethics. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's really all I got to say in the matter. I hope this talk was a blessing. And yeah, peace to you. Remember, deceit abounds, so keep your eyes wide open. Peace out.